Hello everyone, welcome to the Total Quality Management Competency Review video for C483 Principles of Management. What is Total Quality Management, or TQM as it's otherwise known as? Now, this is a concept you may not have thought or even heard much about in your own business, work experience, or prior course experiences, for example. But what TQM is the integrative approach to management that supports the attainment of customer satisfaction through a wide variety of tools and techniques that result in high quality goods and services. Pretty big but nice sentence there. That's directly from the book. We have some key areas I want you to think about as you go forward and review this competency. Again, integrative approach to management, attainment of customer satisfaction, wide variety of techniques and tools, high quality goods and services, right? All that good stuff that you want in a business and an organization. The bottom line, or the main point of TQM, is to improve quality of goods and services and weave that process into everything the organization does. Make it kind of part of the organization. And I have a little snippet there in quotes, as opposed to the old way when things just started in the Industrial Revolution. There probably was not much quality control. I think people, independent workers and craftsmen, probably did that on their own as they made the product. But once the factory system came out, that was sort of an afterthought, and it was done after the fact and kind of inspected and threw things back in the fire, so to speak, if it didn't come out well. But obviously with the modern technologies, the modern world we live in, things changed quite dramatically. So you want to think of the concept of continuous improvement, or Kaizen, in meeting customer needs as you improve the value chain. And if you remember from chapter 9, actually, where a lot of this material is noted, value chain was a concept that's talked about in strategic planning, very important. Also Michael Porter, and it's the idea of adding value, right, in your process, from all the way from R&D, from research and development, to sales and service of your product. Okay, and so it's important for organizations to remember this. It's a continuous process. You want to get everybody involved in this total quality management, this continuous improvement of your product or service, and give them the opportunity to add value, right? Add value to every step in that value chain. So moving on to the next slide, just quickly, we talk about quality gurus, and luckily or not for you, that the course doesn't go into much detail on folks like Schuhart and Juran and Feigenbaum, Crosby, and some of the Japanese management experts like Ishikawa, Taguchi, who applied statistical and other mathematical, analytical concepts to business problems, right? That's kind of where it started, especially during really World War II. After World War II, a lot of these techniques, statistical concepts that were coming out in the turn of the century and onward, were applied to the war effort. And then later on, after the war, after World War II, folks like these guys here, and also W. Edwards Deming, who came up with his 14 points, they applied this to the business world, right? With post-economic boom, post-World War II economic boom in the 50s, 60s. This is where this stuff sprung out and really came of age. So we'll focus on Edward Deming. He's in chapter 9 specifically. The 14 points are listed there. You don't have to know all the 14 points, but read through them. And just understand that, okay, what is he thinking about here? What is he talking about with these 14 points? It's primarily the holistic approach to quality. Everybody's on board. It's not just upper management. It's not just slogans. It should be weaved in the fabric of the organization. Okay, and give everybody a chance to kind of play be on the playing field and contribute to quality. And this really took off in Japan, as I mentioned here. Again, not something you need to go into or know about, but just to mention it, he helped the really Japanese get back on their feet and was responsible for a lot of the quality products that they started to deliver in post-World War II, and some of the great companies today like Toyota and Sony and so on and so forth. They used a lot of these techniques from Deming. He really became an icon in Japan, kind of fit the culture and what they wanted to do at the time. So just keep that in mind. But 14 points are important. Take a look at those and kind of read through them and understand where he was coming from. Then we move on to total quality tools and systems. And we're only going to really focus on two here. The first one is Six Sigma. And it's what that is if you haven't heard about that, it's a statistical sign for standard deviation. The sigma, the statistical technique, again mentioned in the previous slide. That's what these folks brought to the table. Six Sigma is more of a more recent invention, and was developed by Motorola only back in the 80s and the mid 80s, and it's very much used in industry and different service industries today, especially in the United States. And it requires fundamental changes in organizational processes and relationships with customers and suppliers, as noted here. Now, you don't really, again, don't have to know much of the details other than probably the key thing, as I mentioned here, six would be the Six Sigma, 6 standard deviations from the normal range. That would translate into about 3.4 defects per million. Right, just about that. So it's all near perfection, statistically speaking, near perfection. Knowing you can't really be perfect in everything, and so and in anything actually. So Six Sigma, you may have heard of Six Sigma black belts and green belts and so on and so forth. So they use that kind of martial art, karate, black belt, green belt type lingo in this quality control system. And it's, again, used quite extensively, especially here in the United States. ISO 9000, 9001, ISO 14000, there's all these different numbers here, but ISO is the International Standards Organization based in Switzerland. This is a kind of a global quality standard. It's been around a lot longer, and it's used much more extensively overseas as well as here in the United States. It's something that's been established for quite some time, and it revolves around 8 principles. And it's more internally driven and revolves around certification by ISO through external audits. Okay, so basically a company will say, okay, this is what we're doing. They map out their process for quality assurance, quality control, quality management, I guess. And then an outside auditing on a sponsored ISO sponsored organization or official auditor would come in and see, okay, are you really, are you doing what you say you would do in this situation or in your quality control standards? And so if you can prove that you are following your own guidelines and they meet these 8 principles, which we're not going to even go into here, but then you're certified. Then basically you'll be okay with ISO, and you have that certification. You can say that you're an ISO certified company or organization. We go on to the concept here of reengineering just briefly, and again, all these are in Chapter 9, certain sections of Chapter 9. They're in the book. Going back to Six Sigma, there are some mentions in Chapter 16. Specifically, the role of Six Sigma goes into that a little bit more detail. So, take a look at that as well if you want to read more about what that means. Reengineering is based around the idea of cutting costs by focusing on what the customer wants. Okay, that's the key. Focusing on what the customer wants and how that value chain, which we just talked about before, how that can be improved. So if you were the customer, how would you like us to operate? Okay, and that's directly from the text. If you were the customer, how would you like us to operate? And that is reengineering. Comes in many shapes and sizes, and there's many books written about that. Really came out, I guess, in the 80s, and then continue on to the 90s. You don't really hear about it that much, but it's been around for a while, and it's more about the second quote here, reengineering is not about making minor organizational changes here and there. It's about complete overhauling the operation in revolutionary ways to achieve the greatest possible benefits to the customer and to the organization. Okay, achieve greatest possible benefits to customer and organization. So focused on the customer, how the customer would like us to operate. Okay, obviously easier said than done, but that's really the goal, the focus. Make it easy for customers to work with the organization, buy their products and services, and make it streamlined and efficient. So much more, as opposed to continuous improvement, which we just talked about in the prior slide. The ongoing, incremental, step-by-step improving, slowly and slowly to get to a better product. Ongoing basis. Just keep on thinking about that. This reengineering is a more radical change, and kind of throwing out the old and bringing in the new, because the old doesn't work. Okay, old doesn't work, and you want something new in your process and way of doing business. We move on to quality assurance, control, and audit. These should be taken from businessdictionary.com, and really want to mention just a little bit of some differences here between concepts like quality control, which is a process that measures and determines quality level of products and services, and it's a little bit more reactive. Okay, again, more after the fact. Check out the quality. Okay, how is this product and so forth? How is it made? Is it hitting the quality standards? As opposed to quality assurance, is more of a complete system to assure quality of products and services. Okay, we're thinking maybe more of W. Edwards Deming here. Quality assurance, it's not only a process, it's a complete system of management that includes quality control. So it's a more proactive, right, from beginning to end, from the get-go, trying to think about, all right, how can we assure that we have a quality product that we can deliver to the customer. Quality audit here, just like we mentioned, we have accounting audits, right, which you probably have heard about, IRS audits, accounting audits for big companies, and then there's the ISO audit, which we just talked about. But a quality audit, somebody coming in and seeing, how does your organization conform to these standards? So right here is the quote: periodic, independent, documented examination, verification of activities, records, processes, and other elements of a quality system to determine conformity with standards such as ISO 9000, okay? And there's others as well. And you can do an internal audit. A company will do an internal audit with respect to quality and kind of see, all right, are we, kind of in preparation for an external auditor? How bad are we, or how good are we doing here? Is there something that we need to check right away and get back on track with, for example? Okay, before somebody else comes out and tells us that we need to change. So that's what the quality audit is, and again, quality control and assurance. So think about that as we move forward to customer relationship management. Okay, customer relationship management. Take a look at that slide and look a little bit at that diagram there, that strategic triangle, before we go into it. So CRM, you may have heard about this before. Customer relationship management, defined as a multifaceted process, typically mediated by a set of information technologies that focus on creating two-way exchanges with customers so that firms have an intimate knowledge of their needs, wants, and buying patterns. Okay, they are meaning the customers' needs, wants, and buying patterns. So how are you looking at the customer? How are you tracking that information? What does the customer want? It's very integral to marketing process, and but taking it a step further. Finding out as much as you can about your customer and keeping them your customer. So their needs, wants, buying patterns. We talk about, or we can think about this in modern terms with all the social media we have, all the technology that's just rapidly increasing on a daily basis, and that creates so much data, which we call big data. It's almost too much to process. So your firms are looking to process it on the fly and as it comes in, which is kind of difficult to do, and using things like predictive analytics and so forth, and all these techniques, analytical techniques and database techniques, and mining this information and using it in a positive way to increase that contact and relationship with your customer. There's this strategic triangle diagram, figure 9.2 from the book, chapter 9. Kind of a simple diagram. There's not much to say about this, and the book's explanation is kind of short as well. I think just a few sentences, and it's really looking at customers, or the value created by customers coming from the company, labeled here as the corporation, and its competitors. Okay, so I guess the fundamental aspect to remember is customers get better value when companies think about that value that they provide as well as the value the competitors provide, right? Kind of keeping them on their toes, I guess, is a good way of explaining that. So that competition, that dynamic, increases value generated to the customer, because you want to maintain that relationship. You don't want somebody else to take your customer, really. So maintain that relationship with them. Okay. So hopefully that helps as you move forward with this total quality management competency. Last but not least, and I think the next two slides, we're going to discuss manufacturing concepts and technologies mentioned in the book in a section as well. Just good to know what a computer integrated manufacturing, or CIM, is. Use of computer aided design and manufacturing processes and sequences to optimize a number of production processes. Okay. So using computer to aid in manufacturing, maybe sequence and optimize. So optimize meaning make it more efficient, make that production more efficient. Flexible factories, may have heard about this. Plants that have short production runs organized around products, decentralized scheduling. So flexibility is key. Okay, so short product runs just means that you're not doing continuous. You're not going full out 24/7 necessarily. You're doing short runs of a certain product and then maybe changing it slightly or radically to a different product based on your order, based on changing customer needs and wants, for example. So you're organizing that to be flexible so you can produce a wide variety of products and change quickly. And just in time, another concept very commonly used in Japan and obviously everywhere now, calls for, it says here, sub-assemblies, components in a production process manufactured in small batches, small lots, and delivered directly to the next stage in the production process just as they are needed. So minimizing waste, okay, just in time, as it just, instead of delivering stuff a month in advance and having it sit there in the factory and then taking it out when needed, it's delivered in smaller lots and smaller deliveries right when it's needed, right, or right before it's needed, to minimize any waste, keep things efficient, right? So of course there's some drawbacks to that, right? If something happens in that, and you don't get that product in time, then you're kind of stuck. But obviously it takes a very coordinated, integrated system to make that work properly. Okay, and so a lot of like auto plants here in the United States and elsewhere will have a lot of suppliers, and that's really Japanese concept. Suppliers close in that area, in that same area, right, in the same town or region, so that they can supply the factory as quickly and more efficiently as possible. Continued on with a few more concepts, small batch and large batch. So just talked about the flexible factory, small batch, making goods and services in low volumes, job shop. So again, not making very much of one thing, provides more flexibility as opposed to large batch, high volumes, really mass production, ongoing. Well, continuous is really the ultimate. That's when processes really never stop and everything's automated. And so there are some examples of this, raw material processing and so forth, that is pretty much automated, and you don't really need to have many people in in the mix, right, or in the factory, or in the process, or involved in the process. We're really automated and just going 24/7. So again, small batch, large batch, continuous, and then there's the idea of mass customization, which looks like we're going to end with. And that's when technology is used to customize a product or service for low cost. So mass customization instead of mass production, it's slightly different. So you can think about a 3D printer printing out your product and services on demand, and customize slightly based on your own needs and wants, right? So we're at that level where we can customize things. We can sew a shirt for a client based on color and size and other requirements, and kind of do that on the fly, basically as it's ordered. So that's a concept very often found in business these days. So be aware of that, mass customization. So that's total quality management. Not too involved. There's not that much to read about. Again, mostly just chapter 9 and a little bit of chapter 16 there. And you should be good to go. So we'll continue to review the video and the concepts in this competency. And I wish you all the best going forward.